Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Tina. We are going to introduce useReducer inside this video. The useReducer hook in React is powerful for managing complex state logic within a functional component. It provides a way to handle state updates in a more predictable and manageable way, especially when the state logic involves multiple sub-values or actions. It is often preferred over useState when you need to manage state transitions that are more complex. This one could be a scenario. Scenario is like if you have lots of use state inside a component and they are kind of like related to each other, then you probably can refactor to use reducer instead of using lots of use state. Okay, so the syntax is like this one. You use reducer, you have to give a reducer function. Okay, reducer function is a pure function. Okay, and you give an initial state here, and it will give you current state and dispatch. Reducer is a function determines how the state should be changed in response to action, which is you give me what kind of things you want to do, and give me current state, I will give you a new state. So reducer function typically like this syntax. You give me current state, you give me action. What do you want to do? I will generate a new state. And reducer is a pure function. If you give me same state and same action as input, I will always produce the same output as a new state. Initial state value, okay, which is passed in the reducer. State represent current state. Dispatch, yes. If I want to change a state, how can I change a state? Okay, you have to dispatch a function, send action to reducer. Okay, so the how to use reducer? We started with creating a reducer function, which is this function, reducer function, used by what? By the useReducer. Okay, the reducer function takes current state and action as input to return a new state. So in the reduce function, we take current state and the action will generate a new state. Here we are going to use a very simple demo, which is our increment, decrement, reset for the count. Okay, so I'm going to go back to our code, and here I'm going to use called a new folder called useReducer demo. Okay. And what did I use? Let me just say you do reducer hook. Create a reducer hook .tsx. Okay, and then RFC. Okay, which has a reducer hook, and I don't need to have this imported here. And in the reducer hook, let me make sure guys are be familiar with this syntax. Okay, this one. Be familiar with the syntax. I'll put it inside here. Okay. Format. Here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to have a number. Then I can do +1, -1, reset. Okay. We definitely can use useState to do, but here we're trying to use reducer. So here I'm going to first create a function. The function is called a reducer function. Reducer. Reducer is what? Reducer. Okay. Reducer is a function. The function, as we mentioned earlier, it will get a current state as one of the input and action. Then it will give me what thing? It will give me generate a new state. So our state will maintain what? Our state going to maintain is a number. That's why here in our slides here it's gonna have a count, okay, which is state count +1, which is our state going to maintain is a number. Okay, so here I have to give a type, state type. State type is equals to what? Equal, here have a count, okay, which is a number. And now we will give our action. Action here, what's the type of action? Action type I'm going to do is here we have a type. Type will become a string. Okay, and we also will have what? You can, here we don't have payload, so we just use the payload, don't have payload, okay. So the state gonna be have a state type. We are going to maintain this count, which is number +1, -1, reset 1. And for this action, when we dispatch, we will say, what you want trying to do? I'm trying to do an increment, I'm trying to do a decrement, I'm trying to do a reset. That is, okay. So here I'm going to have action type. Then I'm going to do is here I will have a switch. Usually we use switch statement. Okay, switch by what? Action.type. Action.type. Then we'll have different case. Case if it's increment. Okay, then I will do what? You produce the new state. The new state we're going to do is here, make sure we always generate the new state. Don't modify on the existing because it's a pure function, okay? Don't modify on it. We will do spread, then we will do state.count equals, count. Count will be state.count +1, which is based on the current value of the state. I will just increment 1. Okay, this is the increment. If I use decrement, you give me a type. What kind of action of type? Decrement. Decrement. Then I'm going to have a return. Return what? State, which has count. Count is based on current state count -1. Okay. And we will also have one more case is called the reset. Reset, I'm going to return what? Return state count equals 0. Okay. So you may say, oh, why we have the spread here? For this one, it's not needed. But if your state maintain multiple things, like besides count, you have other things, you will spread others, you only modify on the count, okay? Then usually we'll have a default case. The default case is gonna be return the current state. For anything doesn't match increment, decrement, reset, I'm going to give you a default one. So this is reducer, which is based on the state, current state, based on action. You will give me what? You will give me the new state. Suppose my current state count is 0. If you give me action increment, type is increment, then eventually I'm gonna have count. This is 0 + 1. So the state gonna maintain count increment 1, right? So if you give me state is 0, you give me action type decrement, I'm going to have -1. If you give me state is 0, I will reset, our count still be 0. Okay. So if you give me anything else, I will just get the default state. Okay, which is current state. I don't handle anymore. So this is the first one, which is generate the reducer. Second one, you use the reducer. After reducer function is created, we can use reducer as follow. You use reducer, you give reducer, and you give initial state. Okay. Whenever we dispatch action is called, it will invoke reducer function to generate a new state to populate the value with a new state. So reducer function, initial state, go to use reducer. It will give me current state and dispatch action. Function, my bad. Okay. So here in the hook component, I'm going to use reducer for all hooks, which is like a useReducer, useState, use memo, use callback. Those hooks must be inside the functional component and on the top level of function component. Okay. So here I'm going to have a const. Here we'll have a state. No, not a state, just state. State, and another one is dispatch, and equals useReducer. useReducer will accept two things. One is initial value. So here we can create an initial value. Initial state, okay. Initial type is a state type. You can add a constraint, type constraint here. And the count by default is 0, okay. And here we can give initial state, and we can also give the reducer function, okay. What is the error? Why have error? Argument type content number is not assigned type to any. Oh, I have to give a type here. Number. No. Why do you have a type is any? What's the reducer any type doesn't match? Why is the type doesn't match? Previous state. Oh, here. Wait, I have a state type and action type. Type state type. What's the error? Let me take a look at my slides. Okay. Reducer state here stated name. I use type and interface doesn't matter, right? Action type. Okay. Why do you have error? Reducer initial state. Reducer state type action type. Have a type is string. Yes, type is string. Okay, then here the first one is state dispatch. No. Oh, my bad. I should use reducer first and then initial state, right? Reducer first, initial state. My bad. Okay, my bad. Okay. Which is reducer first. My bad. Then initial state. Okay, no errors. Okay, I was thinking why it has error. Okay, so reducer first and initial state. Okay, this is for use reducer. So here we will display the state. How to display state? You can use state.count. Okay, my bad. And then we are going to display in my component. Here I'm going to have a reducer hook. Okay, then inside the browser I will have a localhost 3000. You will have a hook is 0, which display the initial state by default. Suppose my initial state is 10. Okay, you will see here gonna have a 10. This is initial state by default being displayed. Now, how can I make change to my count, right? Then we have to use this dispatch. Okay, so here I'm going to have 3 buttons. The first button is called increment, and I'm going to have another button is called decrement, and I'm going to have another one which is reset button, reset, and all of them gonna have action. Okay, so here when I unclick, what's going to happen? You have to make a change to the current state, right? Either increment, either decrement, or either reset. So how to make the action? Yes, then we have to use what? We have to use here directly have, okay, we have to use dispatch. So here you have to dispatch. Dispatch is a function being returned by useReducer, and here you are dispatch what? You are dispatch an action. So an action for our action here has what? Action here has a type. So you have to dispatch an object which has a type property. Usually we're going to use type, but you can use anything you want. Okay, so dispatch what? Dispatch an action. Action, you have to give the type, which is an object have a type. So here you have to give an object which have a type. Type is what? Type either increment, either decrement, or either reset. So make sure you can use a constant here. Okay, make sure that the match. If it doesn't match, you're gonna have a problem. So unclick. We'll also have a dispatch. Dispatch what? Dispatch the type. Yes, decrement. Dispatch what? Dispatch action. Then you take a look at what's your action type. Decrement, and then unclick. Here we also have a dispatch. Dispatch what? Dispatch a type. Type, in our case, this one is what? Reset. Reset, okay? So now let's take a look at our scenario here. So when I increment, you are +1. When decrement, you got, and the reset is 0. So increment, you start again, decrement, okay, reset 0. That is the basic scenario of useReducer, which is what? First, you define your reducer. Reducer will have current state and action. It will, based on current state action, generate a new state for us, okay? And how to generate new state, you decide, okay? Then here, after you reduce it down, you will call the useReducer hook. First give reducer, okay, I made a mistake. Then give initial value. Then it will return a state and dispatch. State will represent the current state in the useReducer, okay? And then you dispatch what? Dispatch the type, okay? Suppose you want to do what? You can also give a payload here. Payload and a number, which is I increment what? I increment not only one. I will increment this here. You can use action.payload. Here you can use action.payload. So in this case, when I dispatch action, not only dispatch only have a type, you also need to give a payload. Okay, so here you are see here have syntax TypeScript have a type checking because you don't have payload. We add a payload. Payload I will in every time I increment 1. Okay, and here I will have every time I increment how much? Increment 2. Okay, so reset don't need to have payload. You can also make this one to be optional. Optional. And then here you will not have error, but here you're gonna have error. So we'll use exclamation here to make sure we do have a payload. When for the increment and decrement, we must have a payload here. So or you can do like this way. Don't have payload. It has payload. You use what? You use action.payload. Otherwise, you give what? 0. Okay, do like let me see. Like this. Okay. Like this. Okay. If you have this one, add. Oh, can I do like this way? If I have action.payload, I'm going to use action payload. If don't have, I'm going to use 0. You can also use 1. Let's go into 1. Okay, increment 1. Oh, I have to add a parenthesis here, okay, to make sure they are quoted together, these two together. You can also do the same thing as this one here, okay, which is if I have payload, then I'll use my payload, and if not, I'll just decrement 1, okay. So anyway you like, okay. So now for this one, we are going to every time increment 5. This one every time decrement 2 and reset to be 0. So this is the basic syntax of the useReducer. If you guys understand Redux, this one should be easier for you because useReducer get an idea from the Redux. Like see here, the reducer function, exactly same, the syntax like Redux, okay? And the state, you will see very similar. But the initial state in Redux is not in the useReducer. The initial state is added in the reduce function. Here you will give the initial state, okay? Let me see. We have some more time. We can give a real scenario about when to use reducer. Okay, here I'm going to have a user. Okay, user. Let's do user component. No, channels. I think we will use channels. Okay, our user is also fine. Okay, we will have a export RFC user. Here inside we are going to do what? We are going to fetch a request to the client side when I click a button, or just the initial, okay, when the application starts and display the user information. But what we will do first is I'm going to, when the page is loading, this useReducer, I'm just loading. And when the page is finished, I'll display all things. When it have errors, I'm going to display errors, okay? So we can do without useReducer first. So I'm going to do is, you can do like this way. Const what? Const is loading. Okay. Set is loading. Equals useState, which is false by default. Okay. Then we can have a const users and set users equals useState. Here I'm going to give empty array, but what's the type of it? Here I'm going to, for this user, I'm going to just display have two things. User, okay. And here we are, this name, I just call person to make sure they are different, okay. Person. User. Because here is also user. Here is also, let me change this one to be user component. So you want to get confused, okay? User component. This is the React component. This is interface user. It's going to have ID. ID is a number. It's going to have a name. Name is a string, okay? And then for the type here, it's going to be user array, okay? For the type here. So last one is const error. This is to display error message. Equals what? Equals useState. Okay, here we are going to have empty string as a default for the error. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we are going to make a fetch to the user, and when it's loading, I'm going to do what? I'm going to have loading displayed, and when I grab all the users, I'm going to display all the users, and that's it. That's all the things. Okay, and when it have error, I'm going to display error. So here I'm going to have h1. Oh no, h1. Let's go do a little bit simpler. Okay, click button below to fetch user, which is I'm going to have button here. Button fetch users. Okay, and here we have onClick. OnClick, I'm going to call a function called a fetch user. So here I'm going to have a const fetch user equals a function. Okay. And below, I'm going to display either loading, either fetch user successfully, or either fetch user failure. Where to fetch user? We have, I guess you guys know this one, JSON placeholder, this one. Okay, so I'm not talking about XOS now, so I'm going to use the fetch. Okay, fetch this API, fetch this all the users, and I'm going to use async await. Okay. And here const response equals await. Okay, and then I have to await again, which is a result equals what? Await on response.json. Now it's going to get me what's the result for entire thing. I'm going to put in a try catch, because I'm using what? Async await. If you're using promise, you can directly using a dot catch. Okay, if I have errors, catch any errors, which is error, then I'm going to do something. So before I start fetching, I'm going to do what? I'm going to set is loading to be what? To be true. It's loading. Okay, it's loading. And once I finish this result successfully, I'm going to do what? I'm going to set is loading to be false. Okay, and then I'm going to set users to be what? Users, let me take a question. Oh, it's an array. See here, it's an array. Oh, my bad. It's an array of objects. So I'm going to set users to be result, which is the entire thing. For this case, it will give me everything, not only ID and name, okay? Because the return is gonna give me everything, but I only care about name and ID, okay? And then in the catch, we also need to do what? Set is loading equals false, okay? If we catch any error, loading to be false, and set error to be e.message. Okay, let me see this type. Cannot be this type. Catch close variable and it must be any and unknown. Okay, so here E. So I'm going to do is just do, because the type, see here, it doesn't give me the E. This one is not an object, this one is string. So I will just say oops. Okay, oops. Okay, like this way. Doesn't give me message. No, doesn't give me message. Fetch. Anyway, I'll do that. But if we use XOS, I couldn't remember to tell. XOS probably will give you. But the idea is like this way. Okay, when the fetch start, I will say it's loading, and then finish the loading and react, or finish the loading or error. Then below, I'm going to do like this way. If it's loading, okay, it's loading, then I'm going to display what? I'm going to display a paragraph called loading. Okay, to be as simple as possible. Okay, otherwise if we have error is not empty. Okay, I'm going to display the error message, which is oops here. And else I'm going to do what? Else I'm going to if users array, if users length, do I have is empty? Is empty? No. Don't have is empty. Okay, empty? No, don't have. So length is equal to 0. Then I'm going to I will display P. No user found. Okay, and else I will display the everything about user, which I'm going to do is have a users.map. Map will have u, and here I will display in a paragraph. Paragraph gonna have a u.id, and then u.name, and here you have what? You have a user type. Okay, what is this one? Yes, users. Okay, and here we'll have a key. Key is u.id. Why also have arrow here? Users is an user array, so why not using users.map? What's the thing here? Oh, here potentially to be multiple. Okay, that's the reason. Because this one is potential to be multiple, so we have to use let me use ul. Because this potentially to be multiple, then it's not a single root. That's why it's always to need to be single root. So here I'm going to use li. Okay, here I'm going to use li to f. Okay, like this way. And you can also do more refactoring, which here you can use id and the name. Then you don't need to have this u.id and u.id and name. You can directly use id and name. So now let's take a look at the scenario. So here, oh, I didn't put it here. Put it into my app. Put it into my app here. And here we have a user component. Okay, and then we are going to go back to the browser. So first, no user found. Why? It's because here my user is empty, and when the empty after for this curly brace, it's going to do what? Oh, loading is false, error is false. This one is 0, so no user found. You can also do other checking, is the first time or not the first time. Okay, like if it's the first time, I will say nothing here. Okay, if not the first time, you will do something else, which is like this way. Yes, the first time loading. Set yes, first time. Use state, which is you can use true. Then here you are set when you start fetch, you are set is first equals false, and also set is first here to be false, and also set here to be false. Okay, we can do, and then you can add another loading. Yes, first if it's true. If it's true, I will display nothing, and then otherwise do like this way. Otherwise, loading everything. So now you are fetch user. Click button below to fetch user. Okay, is first. But if I click fetch user, you will see loading, then everything. Okay, see here. First, no, click fetch everything. Fetch all the users. This is the demo we achieved to using useState. You can also do a little bit of refactoring. See here, these two things, right? And these two things, you can put it in finally. You can put it in finally. So no matter what, we are going to execute what? We are going to execute set is first. And these two you can remove. Okay. Like this way. It also works. If the first time, it's pretty quick. Okay, you will see a loading, right? Okay, flash. For the fetch, let me see if I can mimic with the errors. Suppose my URL is not correct. If you use XOS, I'm guaranteed it's going to go to the catch. Okay, but for the fetch, they have certain the errors they couldn't find in the catch. Let's see. Fetch user, you will see that like this way, it cannot be catched. Okay, user map is not a function, it cannot be catched. You will see it's still be in the success. Let's see here, because it doesn't go to the error here, it only can catch certain types of errors. It doesn't go, but XOS it will go to this error. So you can test by using XOS. I don't want to go to details, okay? Because the URL doesn't work. Here, see here, it doesn't go to that error message, okay? So it's still inside the success here. So let me show you. It's still in the success for this kind of. Let's use this ESS. So that's kind of like a weird to me when I use fetch. Fetch user, see here, it is still go to success. Then then what's the point with the 404, right? So here, if you know XOS, you probably use XOS to test. You will go to the catch. Otherwise, here we have to manually to do something. Okay. Anyway, I'm not going to continue on this one because that's not the main point of this demo. So as you guys hear, those components, this state, we have 4. You potentially can have more, you know. So, and they are kind of like related. So you can refactor use what? You have 2 ways. First way is use an object to represent everything, which is first is loading users arrow. They are in one of the object. Okay, they are properties of object. The other way is we can refactor use what? useReducer. Okay. Let's refactor. Okay, we will make a copy and paste. Then here I'm going to user, and then I'm going to say useReducer component. Okay. So how to do here? useReducer component. How to refactor for all the things in the use state, we are going to be part of our state type. So our state type here, type state. Okay, state gonna have what? State gonna have is first, yes, equals is what? Is a boolean, and same for is loading is a boolean, and same for users is an users. Yes, an user array. Okay, and also here arrow is what? String. And then the second thing you can do is this one gonna be our state type. So our initial state is what? Initial state is what? Initial state is gonna become true, false, empty array, and a string, and a string, empty string. So our initial state is first is what? Is first is what? True, which is the initial value you give inside the useState. Okay, and is loading is what? Loading also is a false. Okay, and users by default we here use empty array, so here initial state is empty array. Then we will also have arrow is empty string. So from useState you can get the initial state for useReducer. The second thing you are going to do is to do what? You create the reducer function. Reducer function equals what? Equals a function, right? And here you're gonna have a state, S-T-A-T-E. The state type is what? Type is, let me add a type, okay. Type, state type. Okay, and you can also have what? You can also have action. Action, the type is what? We will add an action type, okay. Type, action type. Action type will have two. One is a type, which is what you want to do. It's a first time, or it's a loading, or it's the success, or it's a failure, right? So here for the type, I'm going to have is a string. We need to have a payload. Payload can be two. See here. Payload here, the arrow payload is a string. For this one, payload is a user array. So the payload is a and for the is first is loading this one. Is loading this one. It's doesn't have payload, just a true or false, right? So here payload optional. Optional it could be user array or what? Or is string, which is for the users or error, because the loading is first, which I change to be true or false, you know, so it's optional. So then here I'm going to have action type. For this part we can do it later. Then for all the things here you can get rid of. Okay, let me make a comment. Get rid of, then replace with what? Replace with state, dispatch, and equals useReducer. Reducer, first one is reducer function. Second one is initial state. useReducer. Okay, why do you have error? Reducer first one is reducer. Let me see first one. Reducer first argument is what? useReducer, right? Initial state, right? So it still have a type. What am I type error? That's why the reason I don't like what thing. Oh, this one have error is because here don't return another state. Okay, that's why I have error. We'll do later. Okay, so all others we'll fix one by one, but we can fix those first. Okay, we can fix those first because those things we have to dispatch. You know, dispatch here, dispatch here. Dispatch. Okay, we'll do later, but those things I can fix. Those things are part of what? Those things are part of the state. So either you can do is state dot first, state dot is loading, state dot error, state dot users. The other way you can do is before it, you can have a distraction assignment on what? On is first is loading, error, users from what? From the state. Because this state returned by the useReducer, it will contains what? This here, this state contains what? Contains everything. Okay, and our type is here, contains everything. So you don't need to change the previous code like a state dot. You can just have a distraction assignment here. You're gonna fix. Now we are going to fix this one. This is a complaint here. Don't have a new state being returned. Okay, so we are going to do have a switch here. Switch by what? Switch first by the action dot type. Then we are going to have a first case. First case I'm going to call is called a fetch user. Fetch users. Fetch users request. You can also have what? You can also define some constants. You know, constant constant, which is fetch user request equals string fetch user request. So here you will use fetch user request is a constant. Do like this way, and then we are going to do what? When the fetch user request, we are going to do what? Return a new state. And the thing we have to change is what? See here, change is first is false, is loading is true. So we are going to change two things, which is first is false and is loading equals true. Okay, this is a fetch user request. Then I'm going to have a second one is I'll create a constant here. Okay, constant fetch FECTC fetch users success. It's going to do what? This one is same as this string. Okay, and let me just have one more fetch users failure. Okay, still will become the same. So later on when we dispatch action, we can just dispatch, my bad. Later on when we dispatch action, we don't need to what I'm doing here, control Z, control Z, control Z, control Z. Okay, we don't need to create a string, we can use this variable. Okay, so second one is fetch user success. Fetch user success, I'm going to return what? Return, take a look at our previous code here. Fetch user success, I'm going to set users. Then also set is first equals false, set is loading equals false. So here we are going to do the same. First state spread, okay, is first equals false, is loading equals false. And we do have what? We do have users. Users pass from what? Action.payload. Okay, so this is the one. And the next one, we are going to do what? Case. Case is a fetch user failure. When fetch user failure, we are going to have what? State spread. Then yes, first equals false, and yes, loading equals first. Okay, but this time we have to be error. Error is what? Error is also action.payload. And we also make sure we have a default case. Default case return state. Okay, so we are done of this one. Now let's while here still have error. Let's take a look at it here. Reducer. That's the reason I don't like the alternative useState. I don't use state. Let's use reducer. What's going on? Let me see if it's because of this. Okay, I guess it can. Let's see if it's the same problem here. See here, it complains about a payload which use union. This error useReducer. Here we say we can be user array or a string, right? Then it complains cannot, which type doesn't match. I think it's the problem of React don't support the TypeScript very well here. If we are using Redux, are we facing the same problem if we will use Redux alone? You are here cannot be union. The thing to solve it, I don't want to go details, go very deep. Okay, just the fix is use any. Otherwise, just complaints about types. Exactly the same issue as Redux. Okay, but Redux toolkit solve the problem. But this one, still same error here. Payload complaints cannot use union. So I just using any here. Okay, I don't want to spend time on that. So now we finished our useReducer reducer function. Okay. Based on different scenario, we do different changes. Okay, we produce different new state. Then for all other part where we use state, you're gonna do what? You're gonna dispatch. Dispatch. This one is what? This one is dispatch. This part is for fetch user request, right? So we're going to do is here dispatch, which is dispatch what? Dispatch an action. Action is what? Action gonna have a type is action type. Must have a type. Okay, what you want. So the type we are going to use is a fetch user request. Have a type which is a fetch user request. Okay, because there's no payload for this one. But this part we do have. Okay, so here we have dispatch. Dispatch what? We need to have two things. Type is what? Success. And payload is what? Payload is a result. Okay, and for this arrow we will dispatch what? Dispatch our type is an object. Type is what? Type is a fetch user failure. Okay, and for the payload is what? Payload, what we give here is oops, but we cannot demo this arrow. Okay, you can try by yourself. Yes, don't connect to a network. You should be able to see it. And finally, that's not needed. Finally, we don't need it anymore because finally, city is first, city is loading is already part of the success, part of the failure. So we don't need to do this one. Okay, no need to dispatch part of success or failure already. Okay, that is one benefit, right? So now we finish everything, no error anymore. Okay, and here stated already the structure assignment, so there's no change here. And for all the useState, we replace with one useReducer. Okay, and for all the place we change the state, we will change useDispatch, dispatch like this way. So I think now it's safe to. I don't like these comments actually. If you follow the thing, you do by yourself. Okay, I'll just do like this. Keep it. There's no need to finally. So our code compare is to be like this right now. Let's do a test. We'll go to the app, and then here comment this one. I'm going to use useReducer component. Okay. Refresh, no errors. So here at the beginning is first time loading. There is nothing here. When I fetch user, you will see loading. I think it's because the URL. Did I change the URL back? Oh, the URL. See here, the URL. Okay. I don't want to. You use XOS. It's going to go to the catch. Okay, use XOS. Just the fetch for this kind of errors. It is still in the success. It didn't go to the catch, which is weird. Not good. So here, let's see, you have a loading. Let's do one more time. You have loading, and everything is same. Okay, and if first time, we didn't see anything. Okay, so this is an exercise which we, instead of using useState, okay, we use useReducer. And useReducer can be used in this kind of scenarios, which is a complex state management. See here, we have to have a full useState, and here you have to do one by one. Okay, and with useReducer, pretty simple, right? Okay. And if you understand useReducer, it will also help you understand Redux. Okay. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this small exercise, and see you next time. Bye bye.